Hey everybody, this is Jimbo Jaytech, back here with the second chapter of this series of educational videos designed to give you a bit of mixed wisdom and help you reach the goals for your projects that you're trying to achieve. Last time we did a vertical audit of the entire track, going through each individual part and looking at the processing and really asking questions about how we can make it cooler. Just a single way that we can just give every single little point of the project vertically a little boost with the processing. As I said, we'll probably go through and do some more of that vertically later. Today I want to show you a very similar technique, which instead of going from top to bottom, we take from left to right. So it's a horizontal audit that rather than looking at what parts make up the track and what processing they have, we're looking at each individual element of time and we're asking some questions. The first question is, does it need to be there? I think a good example of that is somewhere like here, where you have two sections that are completely identical for the time being, and asking questions about it sort of raises the question of how long should this track be? Is it running on unnecessarily long? And I will say, as somebody who audits and constantly edits progressive house tracks for a monthly podcast, that the amount of sections of time that I cut out of other people's tracks so that I can put them in a radio show is huge. It's like there'll be a breakdown section that just goes on for twice as long as it needs to, or there'll be a drop section that goes for a minute when it could do everything that it needs to do in 30 seconds. So, and in this day and age, you do have to be pretty clinical and pretty brutal with the time sections that you have and what they're doing. You kind of want to get in there and say your musical message and get out as quickly as possible. So that's the first thing that this audit will do. The second one is basically to look at how all of the different parts come together and see where we can fill things out. So basically looking at each individual section of time, as I've got marked up here, just to sort of show you, like, this is the divisions that I'm using to split this particular project up, and basically saying, like, what are the possibilities for what could be filling these sections? You know, what is in here that shouldn't be, what needs to be removed out of what's already there, and what could actually be there. And that's a way to actually drastically improve the arrangement of the track without adding any extra stuff or really going to any great lengths at all. And you would be surprised how much you can do, how much you can fill out your arrangement and how interesting you can make your arrangement just by using this technique. And especially people in the techno world, where a techno track will have basically just 5 things in it, and the entirety of the interestingness of the track is made up by this idea of actually going and zooming in and giving some uniqueness to the arrangement. So what I'm going to do is go through each of these sections now. I'm going to do one thing to make each section better. It doesn't mean I'm going to finish each section. It doesn't mean it's going to be signed and sealed. And so that's what I want to sort of express to you today is, let's look at one single thing that we can do methodically to move this track one step forward to completion. So I'm going to pause it now, go through it, do it all, and then I'll run you through what I did after that. So I'll see you in a sec. Alright, so we are back, and so much has happened since I've been gone. I've gone through this entire track and basically shaved about a minute off the airtime. It's now a 5-minute track. There's a lot of stuff that's happened both vertically and horizontally, actually. And I'll start with some of the vertical stuff that I've done. Firstly, I've just added a few little kick fills in here to the kick line. So on and so forth. That's very simple, and in very autopilot fashion, I've also just sort of copied and pasted that throughout the whole track, so which is totally fine to do with stuff like that. You'll also see some fills of a similar kind with a few little hi-hats, snares, things like that. Here's some hi-hat fills. And here's one playing off the kick drum. You'll see this kind of thing with the snares as well. That still sounds quite rudimentary, but we'll keep whittling away at that as we go. So basically what I've done is I've looked through each of the sections, firstly asked, does this section need to be here? And as you can see, some of them certainly did not. So, 1, 3, 5, etc. The breakdown is shorter. Everything is just shorter. And I think it's good because this track doesn't really need to take very long to get underway. It's like quite a sort of club style, DJ style track, and it's the kind of track that really only needs about 15-30 seconds to just get on with things. So I'll show you some of the techniques that I've used to help flesh out this arrangement and make it a bit more organic, a bit more of a living, breathing organism. The first thing is a little trick that I used for my track Atlantic, which was a fan favorite from the Anjuna Deep 04 CD a few years ago. And basically that involves just getting 4 different one-shot samples that are all kind of similar but also unique, and just having them fire off at the start of each section one after the other. And what that does is it just really pronounces the start of each section, but in an interesting and unique way. And because there are 4 of them, it happens throughout the track in such a way that it doesn't get too boring and things stay fresh. And so I'll just play them for you quickly. A few things like ping pong and reverb on there just to keep it nice and washed out. Everything in here is run through the duck bus so that everything has a nice little side chainy effect to it. And here's sort of how it comes across in the track. So it's kind of filling this atmospheric sound space. And then basically I just took it and copied and pasted it throughout the rest of the track. Super simple. The only variation was here where I took out the one shot and put in a sub drop instead. Because who doesn't love a good sub drop? I have an atmosphere layer here, which I use to fill in the very first and very last sections of the track. This is from my Scapes sample collection that I released a few years ago. Also sidechained. And so you hear that basically takes a section that has no character at all, and with that extra atmospheric layer, suddenly the scene is being set for more interesting and exciting things to come. Here, looking at this section, the first thing I thought to do was actually do some variations in the little bass stabs that I have. Once again, coupled with these little snare fill, with these little hat fills, and with these kick drums and things, it just makes everything a little bit more believable in terms of and more realistic, and not as static, and not sounding so much like it came from a project. In this section, I added some little claps, just some little clap rhythmic patterns. They're sidechain and run through some processing. There's the Afraid of Bees. And I'll show you just how that sort of fleshes out the arrangement a bit. In the breakdown, I've introduced the chord layers a little bit more gradually, as well as filtered up this chord riff here. There's now a prog bass line here. Very 2003 old school prog. An instance of Sonic Academy's awesome Anna synth with a whole bunch of processing on it. And that's a melody that I'm not really intending for people to be listening directly to. I've not yet really completed the drop, but I have already started to put some of the building blocks in there, such as a little snare drum, a little kick, and this filtering up thing. So that's obviously got a way to go there with the drop, but now there are some makings of an idea of how it's going to go down. There's a riser coming in right from the start here. I might even start filtering these in from a lower frequency to begin with, just so that there's a bit more development. Here I've brought some extra treble and hat frequency spectrum things in, just to help make it a bit more crispy and to make it a bit different from the groove sections before. 24, I added a little atmospheric sample to sort of announce the end of the track, the outro section, give it its own unique flavor. So these kind of things, especially in this kind of music, are actually so important because they are the parts of the track that give a section its character and make it more than just a combination of drum hits. And it's something that's really important, I think, to sort of the whole way through the track, just make sure that it's there. Once again, you know, having this kind of atmosphere at the end makes a big difference. So once again, this is probably the kind of path that I'll do a few more times as well, just to, you know, just to keep fleshing things out as we go along. So I hope that gives you a bit of a sense of some of the ways that you can really just make sure that there aren't any gaping holes in your arrangement, or there aren't any things that aren't living up to their potential. And that's one of the keys of having like a really effective track that does well and that retains people's attention and fits into people's DJ sets. So that's something to think about. In the next installment of this series, I will be looking at some of the parts that we've not yet found a way to use successfully in the project and turning them into some cool new sounds of their own. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you soon.